Yeah, so I'm DonVeto Premier. I'm the founder of the Black Pawn Game.
Welcome back to the Unpleasant Thoughts Podcast. I'm your host, Shampoo, aka Big Shampoo.
And it's your boy Slider Guy, no lie.
We got another special guest in the building.
Yes, sir.
Let them know your name, where they can find you at, and a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah, so I'm DonVeto Premier. I'm the founder of the Black Pawn Game. The Black Pawn Game, y'all probably seen it out here in the description of the word color. That's because we legally have the word color trademark. That's right, we own the intellectual property in that. And the thought behind that was that we wanted to come in the industry as a high-end brand, competing with a lot of brands that we call just like gatekeepers and stuff. But we wanted to message conscious messages through our clothing. So two things we wanted to do. We wanted to come in as a high-end brand that can challenge those who we feel is taking our culture and repackaging in ways we don't do. But second thing, we wanted to kind of like message through our jumps because we did our research and discovered that conscious brands, they do a horrible job making it look fly. You know what I mean? So you probably go out on a rally or something like that, throw a shirt on for the cause of that fight, but you'll never wear that shirt again. You know what I mean? So we said, what if we could take conscious stuff, right? Just really means something, because that stuff really means something, right? And what if we can kind of put it on clothes and show the world and teach and educate people through that? So we found an organization called the Black Pawn Game that's really been around very, very much much earlier than what you have known as the release end, because the concept been around since like 2000, between 2000 and 2004 was created, right? But the idea of putting it on clothing was established over the pandemic when certain European brands had released garments that was resembling blackface. So that inspired us, and we was like, why put this on paper? You know what I mean? Because we were going to put it on paper trying to internalize it amongst young men, because we do a lot of charity. When I say we, I'm talking about me, DonVeto Premier, my partner Charlie Gussum, y'all probably know him, and Mike G. You probably know Mike G, or mention Mike G online. We former event planners out of DC. Just in case I haven't noticed, born and raised Washington D.C. My elementary school, Parkview. My junior high school, Shaw Junior High School. Then I went to high school, Cardozo, even though I didn't graduate from really much of any of them. And we'll get there. But yeah, that's who he is. I'm DonVeto Premier. Right now, what I got on is our tracksuit that released this spring. Just to give us, and I know I'm going off, give you a little bit of what we got on. We the only one that's locally in the industry right now, just like really into this sourcing things. But as I have checked, realistic, can take a suit that I got on right now, and then I can just convert it real quick, and I'll do it before the podcast, into a short set. Because these track pants, which are boot cut at the bottom, because that's the style that's released right now, they convert into shorts. I wore them as shorts yesterday. I'm going to do that before we got off. Everything has been sourced from its raw material to what you see, and it's all meaning something. If you haven't noticed, the little thing that resembles a polo sign is really a pawn with a crown on, a pair of glasses, and a shad. You know what I mean? So it's real like slick, conscious, but it's quality as well, because like I said, I'm born and raised from uptown. I grew up about 7 blocks from the Madness Shop. When you speak of street brands historically out here putting it down, I try to go up in there and get the black box symptom, that they, later on had problems with because of, who drew box symptom. So trademarking and names and, owning an intellectual property has always and will always be a very, very, significant part of our business structure. We currently have the word color, like I mentioned, trademark, but we also have the word Black Pawn Game trademark, which is really huge. We have the certificate for both of those right now, And just the story, because I know I ran with Dawn, but I don't often do this. I like you, young man, and I'm grateful for you guys allowing me on your platform, introducing you to my network. I told y'all in the beginning, as I put y'all in the garments, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, this ain't about nothing. We're gonna shake on this. We're gonna do this the way it needs to be done. Only thing I ask is you tag us appropriately when you put your stuff on. That's all we really current. But the story of the pawn is, the idea was inspired by a mediocre chess player on a mission to master the game of chess. Upon sitting down for his very first game, the first thing he discovered was whoever had the white pieces move first. consequently putting the black pieces in a defensive position. The second thing he discovered was out of all the pieces on the board, whether it was the king, the queen, the bishop, the knight, the rook, the pawn presumably is the weakest piece because it's often sacrificed for the better good of the game. But the pawn is the only piece that can elevate, become any other piece on the board, excluding the king, the queen being the most dangerous, impactful piece. So we are the black pawn game. What's unique about our pawn, unlike any other pawn you've ever seen, is that this pawn right here has a crown on his head, signifying that he or she has already self-identified, gaining his kingdom and being crowned by God. So it's real, real deep, you know what I mean? So it's just the whole thing that you want to talk, and we'll get there, because what we're out here doing now is a grassroots movement, you know, from the bottom up, teaching youngers out here that even though we might be pawns because of lack of resources in our environment, you know, history proved his story, whether his story is our story, it proves that we are the oldest civilization, we're the oldest piece of people that ever been on earth, you know what I mean? And we had the greatest, even the Bible tell you, we had the greatest civilizations. So even how you want to look at that respect, because you know I respect all religions, I'm actually not a religious person, I'm more of a philosopher. You know, they say that, you know, sometimes they give religion to the weak minds and, you know, philosophy to the good minds, and then astrology to the great minds. So, you know, even when you go back and you take your, you know, your spiritual faith serious, you know what I mean, it's going to all come back to the character of a man and his connection to whatever high being he or she may call it. And that's where the juice at, because we all got that ability as people from God. We have the ability to reach out to God. You know what I mean? Like, you know, sort of like, you know, non-collect. You know what I mean? You ain't got to pay nothing to do it. But they trick us to tell us that we got to do all this to get to the God has already been given to us. You know what I mean? So we'll get there. But I, you know, appreciate you guys letting me go off. But, you know, I'm going to appropriately announce what we're doing, because, you know, even though our setting is a little different, but I appreciate it because you youngers are hustlers, right? So I told y'all if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. One way to me, you know, looking to my mother and my father, which, you know, I never met my biological parents. You know, I'm 43 years of age. Couldn't tell you what they look at today, but my adopted parents, they did raise me like their son. My father always said, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it right. So regardless of where a person at, if you get me, and you know what I mean, you got an opportunity to get me, like I'm digging what you guys got going on, I'm going to give you the game.
Nah, we're going to go ahead and jump into it though. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and get into it. Like, you mind talking about the upbringing and how before you got into fashion, like just the upbringing yourself?
Shut up, man. So yeah, I had a real humble upbringing, man. Like I said, never met my biological parents. I was adopted at 11 months. I was adopted in a household from a lady named Mary E. Taylor. And her whole goal was to raise me child, because when she was young and she had got, you know, married to my adopted father, she had got into an accident and couldn't have kids. So her only thing in life was to try to raise many other kids, whether they were blood related to her or not.
That's dope though.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things with me. But I grew up in a household, but it wasn't perfect because her dream was different from her husband's, and I still respect him because my father taught me how to be tough. But it was, you know, many people would look at it as abusive household. You know what I mean? I sometimes psychologically dealt with it by thinking it was strict because they was originally from Beaver Dam in Fredericksburg, Virginia. But ultimately, regardless of that, because I don't never, you know, that's not how I am. I love my mother, my father, and when I say that, I'm talking about my adopted parents, right? It was an experience that God gave me that ultimately made me the individual that I am today. By 14, I left. You know what I mean? Because I honestly felt that like I needed to listen. It was just like what I was telling you, right? And we can get into that in different sectors of my life. Well, if you want now, and I can tell you, I'm very vulnerable, you know, when it comes to telling you. But I left. I had to leave home, and then the streets raised me. You know, I've been shot. You know what I mean? I've been shot at. You know what I mean? I've been both sides of the gun, for the bottom line. You know what I mean? By 21, I was looking at life. You know what I mean? And I went to trial, and you know, and took trial. You know, my lawyer begged me to take a plea to something I didn't do. Begged me, public defender. I had to practically fight my own case because no one believed in me but me. You know what I mean? And so I went to trial and beat that. And then not much after that, I found myself up against the law again for things that came down that was relative to, you know, the Blakely law or the constitutional being unconstitutional when they were considering more time for crack cocaine than it was for coke, when they're practically the same drug, one is just broken down. I didn't get off on that jump, but that kind of saved my life for my more recent integration. But here's a part that's really interesting that people like me for and find amazing about my life. All that happened before I was practically 21 years of age.
Still a kid.
So when you talk about how I came up, adopted 11 months, telling you that the household was, considered abusive by many, right? And me still appreciating, certain characteristics that I got from it because I'm just a man of God, right? But when you really, when you think about all I went through and all I've been up against, and like I was saying, teaching my son his first words from a visiting hall, such as respect, things like that, to me getting my GED in the FCI, Federal Correction Institution, right? And him, returning as a junior to Harvard. That's why I got the Harvard hat on. You see, I'm rocking it. I'm not perping with that. My son going to Harvard. It shows you that depending on, everything is mindset. And the mindset set the environment for me when I was growing up. And it more than less set me up for failure. Through the grace of God, because like I said, I believe strongly, right? I was able to overtake a lot of things that many weren't able to do. And I learned that very, very, very early in age. And what it comes back is that what I've found is that most of us are brought up and raised in environments and we're not told the truth about who we are and what life is about. We celebrate holidays, no offense to none of that stuff and stuff like that, because I've done it too. I'm raised like that, right? And then we look at, athletes, I know, like that, as they're our leaders. We look at entertainers as they're our leaders. And we're very overwhelmed and grateful for all that, because that is some form of success for us as black people, know how hard it's been for us. Yeah, but ultimately, it's not a true way of who we are. So now we go out in the world trying to figure out who the hell we are, and we bump our heads so many times until we find out. So that's the story of the Black Punk. That's what I've been through, right? Me personally, right? So, once you go through this, what you learn is a whole community of other individuals that's going through this, your peers, right? When y'all really talk, because remember, you're talking about environments where black men don't go to therapists to reveal information. We call that hype. You feel me? The most you're going to reveal and vent is to somebody you can trust. And that's usually somebody doing the same type of filth you was doing when you was growing up. So even the venting process is chaotic. That's why you see the violence in the streets. It's ways that we're venting that we haven't had a chance. The biggest thing that has been contributed to my life and my transformation from a street guy to a businessman, working in a corporation, Fortune 500 corporation for the last 12 years, you wouldn't even know it, and have met every convention in the top 1% of finances, right? The difference is that most of the young men don't have a real chance to realize who they are and vent what they told they were. That what they told they are is chaotic. It rises a lot of trauma, and trauma is dealt with in many ways.
Yes, sir. So we're gonna go ahead and when you get into the fashion game, was it before the prison or just after?
Yeah, so like I said, when you talk about fashion, man, I've been into fashion all my life, man. My first real encounter with fashion, I had to be about 14 years of age. The streets was raising me, and I was around the corner on a block selling what we call demos. Demos is when you take illegal things that resemble fake soap or something that resemble illegal substances. It's not good for the word. And you bag them up, and then you sell them to crack. You sell them to the addicts at the time, and it's fake, but you're pretty ripping them off. Anybody that's really been, well, not anybody, but around where I came from, if you was young and you was in the street, it was an 80% chance that you start doing that in the beginning. If you come in,
make it away.
But it was a very bad thing to do, right? But I say that to say that giving those demos that when I was speaking to homosexuals who used to be from Uptown Washington D.C., they used to boost all of the stuff. When I say that, I really mean that. That was my first introduction to fashion was coming from a male homosexual who had stole it from a merchandise store, and it was good shit that we didn't know about. I touched it and knew the material was different. It was a different game, but nobody really was interested in it, and that was at a time when streetwear was more high, but not particularly European brands. I was wearing Prada back when I was like 15 years of age, a whole suit. You would never know what it is until you walk up close on me and see the little red strip before people knew about the red strip, or looked at the shoes and was like, cause they look like dress shoes, tennis shoes, and said, oh, them are Italian shoes that's costing you, $400 or $500. You know what I mean? That was my introduction to fashion, per se, clothes, right? And I wore all that shit. I mean, I step on their shoes right now because I don't like to wear socks. And they do a really good job of making the sole comfortable where I can walk. However, if we align and do this Black Pawn movement like this Black Pawn movement about to do, we're gonna be able to produce our shoes and everything else, because there's nothing that's in this industry that we can't do. You know what I mean? I'm a living legend. I'll give you the game. Anybody out there the game of how you really do it. You know what I mean? When I say I'm a living legend, meaning that I didn't came to this shit with my partners, and we looked at this shit and we were figuring out what's the difference in shit. The problem is that a lot of minorities or beginning businesses like to mass produce stuff, and nothing against that, because that's a really lovely game, because it's all about numbers for some people, right? But remember, for us, it wasn't all about numbers. It's actually competing with brands that are taking our culture and repackaging it. But what you learn is that you got to distinguish the difference between a good manufacturer that knows that you want quality, and a manufacturer,
right? Quality or quantity,
and that you don't want to make cheap is the way I want to use, because they're going to make a lot of this stuff mass production true. They're trained to do it, and the less they're educated about what you want, the more advantage they have on you, because it's so far, across, and just sending the shit back costs more than what you paid for it. You know what I mean? So, because everything that we produce, as I was saying, come from the raw garment to what you see. The hoodie you got on is called an entrepreneur hoodie. I showed you earlier in the video. It defines what it means to be an entrepreneur. You have our conservative crew neck, and you see on the sleeves, I told you that, and I told you to feel the elastic on it. Look at the detail of it. I'm not here to say that everything you see you're going to like, but you're going to see it made with quality. You're going to see a mixture of colors that we put together by survey of the community of what they like to see next. And we're going to keep producing it. And we just getting started. So we started about 2019, to your question, putting it on clothes. But we have had such a quick journey. There's a difference between chronological growth and developmental growth. And I think that since we have had the advantage, and I say me and partners and the group of men that I'm dealing with, group solid men that I'm dealing with, is, getting advice for, interchanging views with, right? We've had a solid run in our 2019, because dudes is buying it, they liking what they get, you know what I mean? And we like what you're doing. And that's what the Black Pawn game is about. It's not just about the clothes, it's about the union of people who wearing the clothes. Because we feel like if we can get you to start wearing our clothes, understanding the journey of the pawn, then we can consequently change your mindset if it needs to be changed. You feel me? It'll be an introduction of who we are and what life is really about for men of color and Black people.
For sure. You give me the definition of fashion to you? Like, what's your definition of fashion? Because everybody has their own definition though. Like, what would be your definition?
Fashion for me, my definition of fashion for me, to be straightforward with you, it's like, I don't even look at it as fashion. I think that's a manipulated word. I think it comes from the word, image. Because when you think of fabric, you think about image. If you could take image as a better root word, what you're going to get is the ability to look at imagination. You know what I mean? What's the best nation on earth?
Imagination. The
nation that you have the image of. Imaginations, even in the word, even in the print, right? So fashion would be like imagine whatever your imagination is. The problem is that your imagination should have some restraints, even though people tell you that they shouldn't. My personal belief is they should have their restraints. People always talk about free will, but they don't talk about the insurance you gotta have it with free will. It has to have a discipline, package to come along with it. Because you can feel free to go out there and run out there like the boy Ron did with Javante last night. Feel free to go for him, but you can get knocked out. You know what I mean? You can do exactly what you want, but there's some discipline. There's some things you need to have a discipline to say that you don't want to do. You know what I mean? Because every action has an oppositional reaction. You know what I mean? So you gotta understand that. So with us and what we're doing, we're basically coming in the industry saying that this is our culture. Even a lot of the stuff that we're gonna be releasing, you understand, it's not even gonna, it's not gonna even, we're not gonna consider it a cheap story. That's the problem. You keep on taking our story, selling it to us to a cheap price, but you're selling it to the global market at an expensive price after you rearrange or readjust it, you know. And, you know, not to call any particular names, but this is what's happening. So why can't we take our real stories of who we are, right, and put it on our garments and sell it at an expensive price because it's an expensive story. Now, that doesn't mean that we're trying to, you know, it's to be straightforward, it's not about the money. It's about the principle and the concept. Like, if you can go spend $1,000, if you're gonna spend $2,000 for this tracksuit I got on, right? And this tracksuit I got on, even though it's a nice tracksuit, you know, you spend, you know, if it had another name on it, you spend $1,500 on it. You know what I mean? It's a nice tracksuit. You feel me? I have personally done that, but I spend that on my shoes like it was nothing. So if I wanted a tracksuit, I'm pretty sure I spent $3,000 on a nice tracksuit. What I want. Well, I can give you that whole feeling of $3,000 for $240, and it's even better. Cause name one tracksuit that you know locally, you can take a tracksuit right now, consistently as it is, and turn it to shorts. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna do it on, I'm gonna do it on camera for you, and that's not by accident. That's by saying, man, we want to do things in the area of designing that you have not seen before, because we're sincerely competing with these brands that are doing things. So do the research is about how do we take our culture back, right? You know what I mean? How do we take our culture back?
Especially
you know
in
what
the
I
house,
mean?
I'm gonna take my jeans off, put some shorts on.
I mean,
I ain't gotta change clothes.
But if the sun is coming out, so I'm gonna rock this to the day party I'm on my way to anyhow.
Same way.
You know what I mean?
Work
Because
early. I go to work early. It's
Yeah,
cool outside, but when I get off, it's hot as hell.
Like, no, take straight off.
That's definitely.
Yeah, so go ahead, you can finish talking. I just want to do this in 5 minutes just to show you, that I'm serious. I even bought my shoes to go with it.
Your first piece that you released, what was the first clothing item that you released? Like, was it shirt, jacket?
It was an outstanding colored garment shirt. To be straightforward, which it wasn't. I'm sorry. It was a sweatsuit. It was a sweatsuit. It's the same color of what I got on now. To be quite frank, red, black, and white. The material was horrible. You know what I mean? No, it was. It was a good design. He designed it for me partially, right? The manufacturer, and he sent it back. And this is the beginning of our relationship. It was a horrible piece, you know what I mean? But it inspired ideas, and that's what you find about any designers. That's why you see I don't use the word fashion. I'm using the word designers, because that's where everything is coming from, right? That's why when you see more designs, you get to your fourth or your fifth time making an object before you really can be satisfied about it. To be quite frank with you. Yeah, you get the garment back, and you know what you want to keep in your personal opinion, but you also are getting feedback from the community, because we're very intimate to our client base. So they'll even tell you, like, these drawer screens need to be thicker. You know what I mean? Because they shriveled up.
Yeah, I watched.
And if you really care, but these people that's paying $200 for an outfit, right?
They can't get it.
But they don't have to. They used to pay more, but they find out, like I told you, they finding out that they can get a $3,000 sweatsuit for $240 from the Black Pond game, and they can convert into a short set. And I'm doing it on camera. It's been less than 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I just switched my shoes and everything because it's my outfit next. And then, the shirt, by the way, is Black Pond Game, a 3-in-1 shirt, t-shirt we just released. You see it? The Ella stain is in it. It's hitting your body. I'm 169. I'm 172 pounds. You know what I mean? And this sweatsuit right here, I'm wearing a medium, but I usually wear a large. And that hoodie right there, I wear a large, and that I wear your size. You understand? So this is stuff before, and we do all sizes. This just being straightforward with you, but I'm just saying, everything that we're producing, that we're making, is on that quality level. And I know, there's a directive of which way we're going to go with your podcast and stuff like that, and how you're going to present it. But, I'm a freelancer. Just chip in and tell me which way you want to go. But I'm going to keep, when you want to step up into your next day party looking like this. You know what I mean? You see, I took the socks off from the previous interview, because I wore socks with those, because these are boot bottoms. I snapped those off real quick. You know what I mean? I also took my shoes and switched them. I did, and I could have wore those shoes, but as a designer, those are too heavy up top for short. You know what I mean? In my opinion, but you can fashion is nothing but your imagination. But I like to go a little more smooth at the bottom. You know what I mean? With no socks. I told you I don't like to wear socks. And I just throw the jacket on with the shirt. It's really breezy too. This is spring. This is not even summer. If you know that when they do, the spring release, this is our spring release. So, it's a real fast, quick release. because spring doesn't last long. You just water them down. But then we going into our summer. So I don't want to keep on jumping into what we doing. But
it's about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the Black Pawn game, and it's not just me. Even though I'm illustrating the story today, it's about me and all the other group of men that I'm dealing with. My partners they're doing the hard work out here. We really and the community is supporting us. You know what I mean? Like, it's the community supporting because there's a lot of real men that's like appreciating what we doing. So and women.
Yeah, that's
what made you like want to get reviews from the people that you give your product to? Like, what made you want to get that feedback? Some people don't care. Some people put out.
I like them big brands. We probably can't give them feedback. And they don't care what we talking about.
Yeah, what made you want to get the feedback?
They like they gonna buy it anyway because we are.
Where are you? We are.
Yeah.
That's a great question. You want to know why? I'll tell you. Everything you see and everything that we illustrate, and I'm illustrating from, something I experienced. And like I said, growing up as a child, and being a father myself at 6, 21 years married, right? With the mother of all my kids, right? None of my kids was accidents, and I say that respectfully because I'm an accident. So if anybody can speak like that, it's me. You feel me? But none of mine respectfully are. You know, meaning that I did all the traditional things to make sure they was born with my last name by law. You know what I mean? Because it's important for us to take advantage of certain parts of the Constitution, and that's one. Mm-hmm. Claiming what your tribe is the first step of being a man in your house. So you claim your tribe with your last name. So that's first and foremost. But when I was a child, I never got a chance to get feedback. You understand? For every whooping I ever got, some say I was a bad child. I certainly burned up my house when I was like 6 or 7 years of age and watched everybody else get whipped because I wouldn't say it was me who did it. I was getting whipped too, but you know what I mean? But everything's relative. Some might say that I was a kid that was gifted the whole time. There's studies out there that can prove that, and that's why we do the type of charity work we do through our nonprofit called Community Connoisseurs, so we can stay making sure we receive feedback. But feedback is strong. It was, in a lot of cases, it was nothing wrong with my father like disciplining me, right? It's because he didn't reinforce it with love. And see, you reinforce something by love by asking for feedback. So the initial thing that we want to do when we release a garment is we made it clear that we call clients, right? That we want to know what you like about this object, but equally important, we want to know what you don't like. You feel me? Because that's the only way we can get better. See, men that's ego and men that's trying to like not non-confrontational, they don't want to tell you about something if they think they're going to offend you. And again, it goes back to that emotions and the foundation of the household, and whether men are in households with males is young enough as much as they should amongst our community. See, but your major media outlets don't highlight that. These are not the stories you're going to see highlight. You're going to see how violent we are and how much we're struggling and stuff like that. But you're not going to see the statistics that reveal that when males grow up in the household with their parents, more and mother together, just statistically they do better than when they don't. And that's not in no way to look at and discredit the wonderful, work that all my sisters and single mothers and women of color are doing, raising young men on their own. They're doing a trade it up. But the problem is I'm checking men and saying, why should they have to do it like that? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If we really love them, why should we have to do it like that, right? So it's not discredit, but it's about being vocal. We need to, be there. We need to start dealing with the emotions of young men real early on. So to your question about feedback, it's the same relationship. We reinforce our love with the community by asking for feedback.
That's dope, because like you were saying, got a man got to teach a man, a boy had to be a man. So, as far as the design, how did that come about? With the crown, like did you have that in your mind and you thought like, was that like a collaboration?
Nah, man, it wasn't a crowd. It wasn't a group thing, man. It's real sentimental to me, but it's real truth. And my closest friends, they understand it's Charlie and Mike and everybody else that's really rocking inside with the Black Pawn gang. Truth of the matter is that the individual, this evaluating this injustice in this game is a young man who was read ISIS papers about 2 or 3 years before it. and by Dr. Frances Cress Wilson's actually sister from Washington D.C. area, where she talked about the psychological ways that we use games, whether it's golf or blackball, 8-ball, or base. I mean, she if you ever read Isis papers, she talks about how our society has overwhelmingly manipulated us and restraining us with the symbolism that's in your everyday perception of what you call society. So this is something that's not like the small is very huge. So what's the inverted concept of that? Is what we got to see. We got to take the legal system that they're giving us, right? And we got to figure out how can we psychologically introduce ourselves as being kings and queens that we are, right? And it feels weird in the beginning when you see a black pawn with a crown on his head and it's looking fashionable, but it becomes often sporty very soon if you're black and you understand what it means to go through what you're going through simply in a lot of cases just the case of color of your skin. Yes. You know what I mean? We know we got classism where you're in different classes and you're discriminated against, but there's no doubt that this is not something that's just in this immediate area right here. This is something that's global. As a man who's traveled the world, it's everywhere you go. I experience my most racism currently in subtle ways. It's not direct because I'm an educated black man, right? But when I do go to some of your places, the hottest places on the world, whether it's Maui and Hawaii, and Asian people in some cases, you know what I mean, that resemble that they're, Caucasians. But definitely a lot of Caucasians look at you like, how the hell you get hit with me? You know what I mean? That's the first five of us.
How you want to afford to be here?
Because they're there taking advantage of the people of color in most cases where they go, right? Yeah. When you're talking about, warm climate vacations. And, they're not as educated as we here, as grateful it is to be a citizen of the United States of America. So that's one great thing that you can be grateful for. Now how we got it is a question, the thing I'm not willing to get into. But as far as like the freedom that we do experience, we have put down very great, honorable measures to be American. Now that has changed. That is, projected to potentially change with currency wars going on right now. You know what I mean? Because everything is around the currency, right? But as far as our history, has reported, we've done a great job, of preserving rights that some country. Now, there's this big argument, and I don't want to go way off track about what is considered like a democratic republic, because that's what they say we have, a democratic republic, right? And I'm not a political person. They're not gonna do that on their show, because I think it's two wings on the same bird, to be straightforward with you. But to be straightforward, I think, sure. Yeah, but I think that what we call that has to be reevaluated. You know what I mean? Because when you go to countries such as Africa, right? Because I'm a real truthful person, right? And so I was looking at a meme the other day, and the guy was saying on the meme, when America comes here with 60, I think he said 60 or 16 million, I think it was 16 million, because they transcribing now, right? Mm-hmm. He said, he was like, they come in there like, what you want? They want you to change these laws, and these laws has nothing to do with the immediate, desperations of the country right now, but it's like laws that we believe and that we push overwhelmingly over there, but over there it's not the foundational block that might change their current immediate, situation. So they're calling out America on that. He's like, when Russia comes in here and China come here, they offer us tax on how to fight, defend ourselves. So I thought that was like a really, really like mind-blowing moment of, reality for me. Like, why do some people, think like that? Me personally, I respect all people, all group. Like I said, I'm grateful for the freedom we're allowed to have where you can be whatever you want to be in the United States of America. But I consider myself a masculine man. You know what I mean? I'm proud about it, and I deal with a lot of men that's, proud about being a masculine man. But it's, that doesn't in no way say that, as a business that we cannot, work with any group, you know what I mean? That we feel that we can, accomplish something that we believe in mutually. It has to be a mutual belief in it, because we know how these things has, we've done the research and had the receipts of how a lot of movements inspired through our cultures to keep us misled of who we really are. You know what I mean? That's important. We gotta always be conscious of who we really are.
I'm gonna say, so I know like each of the items. Does every like item have like a message on it? Like I know you got the.
Yeah, it's not gonna be the pawn in itself. You answered, but I didn't get to the bottom of that. You're a great listener. Yeah. So the pawn basically is the chess piece. Is really the pawn. But in this pawn right here, you know, it's like one. The pawn isn't by itself. Because anybody that play chess know that a pawn sitting by itself is, you know, practically a dead pawn.
Yeah.
Unless you got some other pieces in pawn. So we cannot do this without each other. It's not no one particular pawn because we all pawns. But what's significant about the pawn is that the one that's in front has the crown on his head, signifying that he's already in trance. There's some transformation here, right? It's not the pawn that we think of, the worthless, hopeless piece. This piece is different. Whether gifted, you think it, but what's so unique at it, it has a black pawn going at the top, but through the pawns they have certain letters, and the pawn in the middle has a keyhole in it, and it has the word AM, which means I am. People don't know that. Now, in business, what they teach you is there too many details in a logo. You know, people can't really, you know, and that's true, because I've done some research. It's too much for people to handle. But that is the one that we do have copyright, and that is the one that is officially on all our garments in the back. Now, we have simplified ways to show it, but even if you look at our most popular items, it is the one that say color that you got on. You look in the dot, it's our logo. So we have never been like, we never have been shy about telling you what it is, but you see the word color because we, again, legally have the word trademark. And then if you go to our website, blackpawngame.com, that's BLACKPAWNGAME.com, then you'll see about a 13-minute video. And I know 13 minutes is a little long, but it's explaining where we survey different nationalities, different age groups, different demographics of what the word color mean to them. So historically, we have discovered that even the word color, because of how we've been raised as people of color, whether indigenous, brown, and black, you know what I mean? We still have some conflict of what it even means to be color and how it's related to the sun, and only the sun and the different levels of the sun produce color. This is facts. This is not something that I'm saying that's like offending anybody, but this is what our mission statement is, to make the offensive defenseless. So, you know, that's our mission statement. So what we doing, but it's based on fact, but it's like, I mean, it's never a point of like xenophobia or confrontational. What I found is that you have a lot of different persons of different nationalities that they respect you even more when you understand who you are, what you're doing. You feel me? So it's never been like that, because all we doing right now is like really like competing basically. I'm basically saying like, man, I got your game. You know, we're gonna start messaging who we are. We're gonna start making quality stuff.
Chestnut checkers.
Yeah, like expressing like creativeness. Like, how do you go about it? Cause like you got a lot of education with it. Like, what makes you want to put an educational piece just that has been designed? Cause like everybody could produce something, but not educating at the same time. What makes you want to do that? And I can tell you read a lot. So, what makes you want to put some education into the design?
I read some really interesting books. One of the most interesting books for me and inspirational for me was Blood in My Eyes by George Jackson, which one of the, some will argue was one of the founders of the Black Panthers, but he at very young age got locked up, and wasn't alone. It was something simple because it was a lot of racism involved, because, you know, it was the Black Panther movement. But he got locked up, and he ended up, because he started taking his education very serious while he was incarcerated, he ended up, you know, like educating himself about very unique strategic things. I mean, whether it was like judo, or he used to do 1,000 push-ups on his fingertips a day. You know what I mean? They said he could kill a man more than 1,000 ways, like just from his own body, with his own body weight. Like he was, you know, they used to walk past his cell and they thought he was dancing, but he was actually practicing. He was, you know, you can read up on George Jackson, real serious brother, right? But his life was taken from him real early. He had to become militant because at that time you had, you know, well, it still exists right now, you know, where you got a lot of racism real hard in jails, like what crews you with and stuff like that. And, you know, black people has always had to fight themselves, whether they've been locked up or free, or what you call per se free, on both sides. It's just the inside is you don't hear the stories of it, you know what I mean? But they're far much worse than anything you can find on CNN. I can tell you that right now. So that was one of the most like books that let me know, because if you get Blood in My Eyes Blood in My Eyes is a book just written by George Jackson, right? And the level of sophistication on the words that he used, you cannot read it with, I don't care if some people probably go to college, I've learned, can't read it without going to get a dictionary.
Just find out what the word
He
means.
was self-taught, but he was using his words, some will argue, superfluous. I will argue not, because I like the self-educated and I like the intricity and learning. But I love a book that I can read and it makes me go get a dictionary and it's talking about something real. And he was describing his whole life in Blood in My Eyes in that way, and it allowed me to know that, we pride ourselves in being the greatest at everything when we're ignorant and uneducated. But one of the greatest things that you can be proud about is educating yourself as a black man.
Yes,
Without education, you almost
I'm
nothing.
kind of saying like from the website, from the story of the Black Pawn game, I kind of seen like this, seeing some of that and that, like the word they use to make sure.
Yeah, sure enough. I mean, well, we want to unionize people through clothing. We released two true sets of jackets that's been really very noticeable, particularly in the DMV area. You know what I mean? And we only released 51 jackets each time. We didn't sell the jackets, we pledged the jackets. And all the members can be found online listed who own it. So we ensured that it would be more than 51 by giving you exactly who owns every jacket. And it was under the release of our Vegan Good. It's not a cheap jacket. Again, it's very expensive.
It's a collection.
Very expensive.
It's limited.
Very
It's limited
expensive story.
If you don't got one, you won't get one.
Again, it's never about the money depending on what it means to you. And that's what I'm trying to teach our brothers and sisters. Like, we need to stop looking at the money and start looking at what's the value of what it means to you. Like, what your life means to you, what your story means to you. Your story a cheap story, then you should expect somebody to treat you cheap. You know what I mean? And when you get treated cheap, all you gotta do is go on a vacation and you can see what that means when you going to Mexico or you going somewhere. These are good people, you know what I mean? Like, really people that are better than most of the people that I deal with on a day-to-day in fact, these are people not walk in there on their phones all day and stuff like that, or you walk past them, they still smile and speak to you. In Americanized, we have the beautiful thing of a strong economy where you can make money, but it's at a price of our character. You know what I mean? We don't get the doors for the girls and females. If you try to talk to a female, she thinking you trying to offend her. Is that everything is extremely online? Who like this or who like that? So the culture, who we are, once you start going to different environments, you realize you have a deficit on. So to be straightforward, these are really good people that I'm talking about. But the way the system, the structure, treat people and categorize people, is very interesting for our culture to take a stronger look at.
Yes, sir.
So what's like one of the best places you've been? Just like this.
Man, it's amazing, but it's true, man. It was Alaska.
Alaska.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I was on the.
That sound cool.
It was the Mendenhall Glacier, something like that. But here's the thing: I was not at the time really huge on cruise ships, right? But my company they offer, this is on the corporate side, because I tell you, I wear a suit and tie pre-COVID. You couldn't catch me without a suit and tie on. But they offered a trip to Alaska if you make a certain amount of numbers. It's called a convention. I made every convention. You know what I mean? Make no mistake about that, because I'm a hustler in the positive.
That's how you go
get it done, right?
Yeah, the positive system. Not only that, it's just, God gives you talent. You got to go learn skill. I discovered what my talent was, and then I was humble enough, vulnerable enough to go understand that I had to go learn the skill to go with it. See, if I was in the jungle and we was being fruitful, being multiplied, it was just about the barter system. Like, we got bananas over there, y'all got grain, let's do a trade-off, whatever the case are, then we'd be really good. But it's not about that anymore. It's a more techno society where if you don't have internet, we can establish a difference between failure and success in life for someone here. So even though you might not have the restricted places where you can't get to them because the road is too bumpy or the well is not producing water, you might not have that here in the local DC or the United States. But you will have, they don't have internet, and because they didn't have internet, they wasn't able to establish the education they should have when they was young. 1, and 2, they got too much lead or they got something in the water. You feel me? People drunk that you hear in some of the places. So it's not what I also know is it's not comparable to say just because we're not having the physical experiences of someone on the island that we're not having our own experience. We're having our own experience, and we have to be very intentional about knowing that.
What would you say is your best and worst fashion moments? Like, what would you say like one of your best and worst? Like, what was your worst time dealing with fashion, and what is your best?
I know you mentioned like
Our
the first
best,
piece
some of
material.
our best works that I did, me and Charlie and Mike and all the rest of the individuals to be supporting us and give us input, was when we released the jackets. Because we designed the jackets from scratch, but it was first generation was the first ones. And it's very rare that you design something and it comes back perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? And just so how these jackets been coming back perfect. Now we're designing them, but you can design all you want. Again, it's gonna come back to which your generation is the thing that you're making. Like for example, that hoodie you got on, that's a third generation entrepreneur hoodie right there. You feel me? And you probably like a fourth generation crew neck. Meaning that we done made crew necks at least four times,
yeah.
different times, right? To know where you can go wrong on that. There's two ways you can do it. Yeah, you can be a trade by design and by trade, a designer by trade. And shouts out to all those designers that like that because they do some incredible artistic stuff, right? But I'm not a designer by trade. I'm a designer by lifestyle.
Okay.
You know, I've been wearing this stuff all my life. You know, I've been watching people wear it all their life. I told you how I got introduced to knowing about it, right? My theory is if I can't wear it, then I ain't gonna let nobody, I'm gonna pledge you to wear it. You know what I mean? So everything you got on, you can find a picture. Some me, we wearing the jump first. Sometimes with the product as being an executive designer myself, I release something and I might have it out 3 months before I even release it, and I might not release it. I got a jean jacket, or we got a jean jacket right now pending. You know what I mean? You can go on this hard, you know, being copyrighted. But you know, we got food stamps around the collar. You know what I mean? Like it is a fashion, but it's not a cheap jacket. It's a vegan good. But we also got the stories of the Moors in the inside and the lining. You know what I mean? Subtly. So I mean, it's you know we're doing we're really doing spend a lot of time and focusing on illustrating the journey of the Black Pond. You know what I mean?
What would be like your worst moments for the fashion though?
The worst moment was
So you
sending
get that-
something that
that
I
full
designed.
material.
Thank you for reminding me on that. Taking something that we have designed and put a lot of effort in it and all the digital part, because you know I'm a digital designer for the most part, even though design is a lifestyle for me. I keep on making that clear. You see me just now went from a goddamn tracksuit to shorts in a video. It's pretty slick in case you haven't noticed that, right? But designing something that was extremely like really good digital done, you know what I mean? But we hadn't got the chance to actually see the fabric, and it came back and the fabric was awesome and we couldn't sell it. You know, we done lost over $10,000 in just that alone. Like as a small business, our first year, second year. You know what I mean? But not tough and strong, because if you do release it and it's not on your level, then it you know, Warren Buffett say it takes 5 years to build a company, 5 minutes to destroy the brand.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta battle and ask yourself what you want to tarnish your brand by releasing this item and talking to upcoming businesses, or would you like to just say, man, I'm gonna take the loss and remake it the way that the clients would like it. You know, because it's experience you offer, not clothes. We don't refer to our things as hoodies and t-shirts and use those type of words. We use garments, and the concept of that is that when you come from a tribe and you know your history as kings and queens, then you know that the elders and the garments, man, they threaded all night for the things you was gonna wear as a warrior to go out to the world, and you wore it, and you know who made it and everything. So our whole concept is that we want to bring that culture back. You know what I mean? It's a garment, and when you wear it, you're a warrior. You know what I mean? So to be proud to go to an outing, whether it's a day party or you know, award ceremony, and have the word "colored" written over your thing, and knowing that it's legally owned by the company and it's put together very well, is a very strong thing to do. Because remember, this is the same word they used to put on a small water fountain and tell you that it was the dirty side, right? And we discovered that it's really the water fountain of God.
Do you like participate in fashion shows and things like
Man, all that's really coming. Like I said, that's we've been ousting and going and visiting a lot of them lately, doing our research with regards to going to look at them and gathering ideas, because this is an industry that, regardless of what you believe in and how you believe in it, if you want to survive in this industry, you gotta be trendy, you know what I mean, and kind of with the trends. That's one thing that I noticed. So, you know, that's one of the hardest, like, that's also, I was gonna tell you about one of the most difficult parts. Sometimes we release things, it's not personally what I probably would want, you know what I mean, like in my previous, though, before my transformation, you know, who I consider myself to be today. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't have worn that because it's a bad thing, because it's too bright in some colors, or because it was like a skinny leg. You know, I'm 43 years of age, but now there's all the people in our age group that want to make sure they keep the skinny brand while they going back to the big fashion is changing to they're wearing big clothes now. The boot bottoms, everything is like big, and in some cases wrinkled, like very wrinkled. In some cases, like this is where style coming. You know, it starts over on the West California, LA first usually, because you know a lot of the Asian market brings it. You know what I mean? To be quite frank with you, they have a real huge impact on fashion. Don't confuse that.
Asian market. Fashion people I've
You know what I
seen.
mean? Yeah. They be putting
Some of them.
The Europeans are the gatekeepers, but they have penetrated much earlier than us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, with respect of taking things and putting culture into it. We're just moving a little behind.
They kind of put us behind until we, you know, it's like it's a revolution, a new revolution era for us as a people, like getting our you know, mojo back. I would say, like getting everything we had that was taken and taking it back and making it ours again, like, and then spreading around culturally.
Well, I don't think that's what happened. You know, I imagine the perspective of that, and I offer this as an opinion, not a fact. You know what I mean? But I'm an honest man. I really think as you look at what happened, you know, as far as my life growing up in Washington, D.C., I always remember as a child that my parents wanted me to grow up and get a good government job, go to school, go to college. That was like the life of what we do. I remember being like 9 years old. I would come back to my father was a 300-pound, like 6-something man. He was a big man. And he always used to want me to take his boots off because he worked in construction. And I would always take his boots off and I'd look at his feet, big feet. And I used to always say, man, I do not want to work.
God damn, up to your toes.
I'm no more than 9 years of age thinking this in my mind. So think about the psychology of these youngins when we talk to them, we try and give them a chance, right? I'm thinking I don't want to do that. And what I learned later on, right, is that I, you know, when I hustled, you know, and I did do that in a legal time in my, you know, my younger life, it wasn't because necessarily I was a bad person and I wanted to just like to do the most dangerous thing in my community. It was because it was a form of entrepreneurship that was introduced to me where it had been not introduced to me in any other place in my life. And I think that's the problem that we need to start understanding, that it survives amongst our youth, right? Which sometimes constraining them by putting them in boxes about what we have as opportunity to offer for them. If someone had told me about a lemonade stand, right, buying lemons and the price of water and the price of sugar at like 9 years of age, that could have dramatically helped my life. You know what I mean? Not that I have many regrets. I enjoyed it being the person I am because it, you know, consequently has made me more what I would call a wise man because of the experience. But I can tell you straightforward, as a wise man, if I was to, you know, descriptively give any advice to youth coming up, is that we have to give them alternative ways to be, you know, successful. You know what I mean? Because they are born in a way to know that you're alive. And I say that to say that when you that generation was telling us to do that, but that generation was bred from the Lyndon Johnson law when he declared what they call a war on poverty. Remember, this is what King was advocating for, was mixed up in before he died as well. You understand? So the war of poverty is switched up. So how do you war poverty? Which most people didn't understand and don't understand is that the war on drugs evolved from off the war of poverty. You feel me? So they're telling you one thing, but it's another thing on their own, because when it was the war on poverty, they gave all these subsidies, but with the way they gave these subsidies was to restrain you if you get over a certain level in life. So you come in, you getting them right, but if you decide to take what you're getting and then use it as an entrepreneurship and be greater than that, there's a middle spot where they snatch everything from you. So you getting the subsidies for free, right? But the trade-off is your potential. So this is what you're dealing with a lot when you're dealing with, you know, communities that you see, right? And they know this, right? So it's like the middle class, that's, you know, it's continually shrinking while the rich get rich and rich get rich. So I say that to say they advocated for that. So consequently what that did is made individuals in our generation rebellious. You know what I mean? You know, we loved our parents and everything, but we naturally know that what they were advocating was not truth. Because remember, their grandfather was just advocating for the more revolutionary style of change for black people. These are individuals who received the subsidies, a lot of the government stuff, and they had more faith with the government, which is it benefits to that as well. But before that, there was a lack of, and you can even see it in the change of the parties. You know what I mean? When you speak of your Frederick Douglass, who's a Republican, conservative. Not, and again, I don't pick anyone, but I'm just saying if you look at the whole picture instead of what they're trying to tell you, like you have to like be this way or that way when it comes to making decisions for your community. No, you should look at the platform of the party, right? And you should study their policy, and you should strategically figure out how that impacts your table first, your community, and your family, friends, and community. It should be just like that. There shouldn't be a structure where one party inherits or another. We should, like Dr. Umar speaks on that, we should form a committee and we should leverage what we want, who's going to give us the most of what we want. That would indeed empower us more as a people, because then we'll have a common goal. You feel me? See, we don't have a common goal that we authentically own. Our common goal is owned by the party who we have adopted because we think that they're going to help us more than the other.
You know, I was going to ask you, I know you were saying when you take your father's shoes off, you know you didn't want to do that. I know when I was a kid, I didn't really have an answer, but they asked what I wanted to be when I grow up. Did you have like a specific thing that you wanted to be?
Yeah, I wanted to be an inventor when I was young. I knew I wanted to be an inventor. What's so humbling about that position, right, is that I learned as I transition into a man. You know, they say the fears of the world eat you up. Sometimes it can kill you alive. The fears. That's why kids are so enthusiastic and lead superheroes.
They have no fears.
We lead the superheroes. We give them this idea of these false superheroes while they're very young because they're fierce, right? It's the ways of the world that beat you up and take you that. And the ways of the world beat me up with respect of being an inventor, and that aspect that I want is that my introduction to who God was to me. I find out that most people that are in huge invent position pollute the world more than they help the world. So that minimized my desire to be ultimately want to be an inventor. And I still, to be honest with you, look at it some ways, even from producing, whether this is a cotton hoodie, polyester hoodie, or a varsity jacket with leather sleeves that comes from animals. You know what I mean? Because you know I've been vegan and I know what happens to animals when you produce leather. So, but this is the industry that we in as it is, because I'm a raw person though, right? So, but as we grow as, you know, an entity as a huge, we have to look at those impacts and make sure they don't, you know, go against what you believe, you know? So there's been a strong thing like in the fashion industry of different like vegan levels, and there's communities out there that actually like stuff like that. So I say that to say, being a designer, it's very difficult unless you're extremely producing really good stuff that's like unique, high contrast, and you like born to do it. And there's some people out here and you have the resources behind you to selfishly just release stuff that you want to release. You're not going to do very well just being like that, because it's not a selfish position. You know what I mean? You have to be unselfish with different diversities and ethnicities to buy into what you're selling. So that's depending on how big you get. And we have always come in the industry not believing that, one, that we're a local company, but more of a global company. So just establishing ourselves as a global company, we already know there's going to be ways that we have to be diverse in our message, right? Jesus showed that to you in the Korean Gospels of Jesus Christ. If you haven't read that, it's a good book you can go get, particularly if you're a Christian, written by a Jew named Levi. But it talks about the 18 years of Christ, when that's not mentioned in the Bible, because you know they say he left at 12, returned was 30, and then did preach the gospel for 3 years and was crucified. Then I'm not saying again from a religious person, but everything is conceptually, and that's what I'm, consistently reminding my brothers and sisters. Like, let's stop beefing about whether you're Muslim, you're Christian, or you're Jew, or anything like that. And let's start understanding that the beauty of, and minimum when you think about the greatest religions, they ideally have the same forefathers.
Yeah,
so that in the beginning tell you that we're more like, even if you want to use that system, then we are different. And that's the story of the Black Pond.
What's your favorite thing about being a designer?
Man, the thing about it is not a favorite thing or not. It's very weird. The first thing that I seen that was really designed very well was the NWA album cover. You know what I mean? When they was all looking down when something was like broke, but it's like the camera is the ground looking up at them, and you can see something broke over top of it. The album cover I used to use as a poster in my room, and I used to put it up, and I was always in my mind like, whoever took that fucking shot, let's hold, because I used to like NWA. That was, I was born in December of '79. And I thought that was like really dope, but I learned throughout my life that it's a really tricky word about considering yourself a designer, so I just try to get dynamic of how I explain it. I believe that I've just been designing my life and the lives of many of us all my life. You know what I mean? Whether it was designing my first house, or it was designing my boat. Certainly I've been putting it on from uptown, you know what I mean? All my life. I told you how early I've been wearing foreign stuff. But anything that I personally have done, whether it's a clip on my YouTube from 10 years ago, I turned my basement, which was an extraordinary space, into a full-blown movie theater. I was designing. I've always had the niche to want to do that. Why? Is because, like I said, I moved to the street by 14 years of age. By 17, I had my own house. Now, how the papers and all that was in it, that's a different story. But I'm just telling you, I was fully operating my own house at 17 years of age. You feel me? And you're going to have to buy stuff. Well, you don't have to, but depending on, what's your imagination, because I told you fashion is nothing but image. And image, the best nation is the nation that you can imagine, right? So imagination is fashion to me. I've always looked at things that, like, for example, this studio, I look at this space and I see how I've always been, like you guys have been able to see how bigger and greater that it is. And since I'm an extreme visual person, I will always put my ideas on the wall. So I bought paintings and things like that very early on. One of the hobbies that I still got, I gotta, help myself not to. When Craigslist was booming, I used to just go shopping, depending on different areas, and look at stuff that's quality sold at inexpensive prices. You know what I mean? And so that was just something that I, took a liking to doing, because what I learned is a lot of wealthy people, they give their stuff away at an inexpensive price.
Do they?
Because they save money on the moving fee. They was getting rid of it anyhow.
They're gonna
So
trash it.
everything comes back to the fight. But I say that as a financial representative, right, from a really huge corporation, still currently in that space now. Financial literacy is also important for our communities. We have to become very literate about how we look at finances, and you got to be subjective to the fact that they built the system. So what that means is that stop trying to do everything the way we do it and the way they say we do it, because they say we can get this for free, and start looking at the system as one of the biggest, strongest economy. We know China's on the rise, but currently right now it exists with freedoms. We got to start paying more attention to that and using a system like that, intellectually owning your properties, starting LLCs, buying property in LLCs, building communities. I'm not trying to say it like that, but that has to be the mindset back to us and our people. And I'm not just talking about people that got money. I'm talking about the small people that don't have money. It's very small, because ideas are bulletproof. You don't have to be rich to have a fucking rich idea. You got to be strategic to bring that idea to life. And that's what the Black Pawn game was about. When the individual was playing the game of chess, did he realize that the white pieces move first, and that's still the rule today. The thing that he discovered most was that, the journey of a pawn is a humble journey, because you start off with nothing. But if you're strategic enough and you know who you are and you get to that rank, you can elevate to become anything you want to be. So that very core concept is like, what are the steps? Because we don't believe in taking the elevator to success. What are the steps like? And then what you realize is that every step to get there is a success. It's just as great as the step at the top, because it makes you who you are. So I'm speaking to everybody that had that story. I know that includes you right now just by the look on your face. And right here, my man doing more the technical side.
Oh yeah.
But you know that's a story we all can relate to and respect. So that's like my early. I've been designing my life and designing things all my life. You know what's so weird? You want to know the most mind blowing design if I ever said? I tell you the best, but I tell you the mind blowing design I got. I had a tattoo from here to here. My wife's cousin watched me get this when I was like, say 17 years of age. It said DonVeto, spelled with the E, like it's spelled today. That's my real, that's my name. You know what I mean? Like I can show you that on my ID. That ain't, I ain't bluffing with that. My last name really Premier. You know what I mean? So that's that. I'm not bluffing with that like that. Yeah, and it means everything to say. But Vito the Bill is more of where the name Vito come from. It's not spelled with the E. The I is spelled with the E. But I say that to say that the tattoo is not here no more. And that's very weird. And I felt like the guy did it with good vibe. I'm very young, but it's gone. You know what I mean? Like it's gone. Like if you look hard, you can see it, but it's gone. And I think that's just the most amazing design that I've ever seen. One that can disappear, motherfucker. But I know it's there. You know what I mean? So I mean, but speaking of that, there's a lot of things that you see that's going on with technology and clothing, and even in that industry, that's some things that keep me on my heel. Like how early should I get into garments that have some type of technical or technology besides the type of linen or fabric it is, and what does that mean for the future of us and wearing clothes?
You want to talk about the Community Connoisseur?
Man, sure. I mean, the Community Connoisseur was a non-profit that's been around before the Black Pond Game. We was event planners in DC, Charlie, Mike, and I. We registered a company before that was called Track Corporate. We did some of the flies parties in the city. When I say flies, like, yeah, flies. You can go on Track Corporate on Instagram. It's dormant right now, right? But you can go back to the beginning. You be like, dog, they had all the parties. We had 9 parties a week in some cases. And you like, it's only 7 days in a week. Yeah, but we had day parties. And we was doing them first. You know what I mean? We was like doing it hard. I got overwhelmed with that as me, my wife and I, we had more kids and stuff and laid back a little bit. Charlie and them, carried it on and didn't decide to give it up. But I say that is because it's a lot of thrill inside of that. It's a lot of time to, communicate with black people and doing that. But the only thing about me, it was like to a point it plateaued with me where I wasn't growing in that industry. So I stepped back because I used to see my brothers and sisters coming in, stand on tables, you do what they doing, but they spend a lot of money, right? But being in the financial industry and learning that, because that was when I was like really young learning it, I learned that they didn't have a financial, a lot of them don't have their financial things in place. So that kind of hit me in a way, a silent hit. Like, how something hit you from God, it ain't disrupt you, but you feel it.
Like, yeah.
As you get mature and went through so much in life when there's never been nobody but God there for you, such myself, you learn to respect God very early on. So I just stopped going so much because I was just like, I don't think that's helping my people. You know what I mean? Some of the deals. They've done some extraordinary differences in this industry amongst a lot of my fellow promoters, and shout out to all of them now owners.
Paying $350 for the feet all
a lot of them become owners, and I ain't gonna call the names out, but they're doing their thing, and I respect that. Let me be clear about it, because I'm in the industry, but I'm just saying, I stepped back, and then we came. This is about the same time that the 45th president was running, and he had nominated Ben Carson to be the director over HUD. And we wanted to know, because he had made a phrase about the inner cities, we wanted to make sure that we could fight back appropriately when it came to inner cities. So we registered our nonprofit called the Community Connoisseurs. Why the Community Connoisseurs? Because we have heard of wine connoisseurs, fashion connoisseurs. But what about being a connoisseur of your community? So that's why we call ourselves the Community Connoisseurs. And we have been self-funded since 2016, roughly. Been around like doing the work like under that kind of like brand since 2016. We do a podcast every Thursday night at 7:30 since the pandemic started, highlighting local leaders that you never get the attention but deserve it, because it's the story it's a journey of the Black Pond. Same thing, but kind of different kind of culture. That's a non-profit. This is a for-profit. everything we've done, we've for the most part fundraised. We have fundraised through ourselves and put the difference of ourselves with the community connoisseurs, and the whole structure of the Black Pond game, is to get it so 10% of it can suffice for all the charity work we want to do the community connoisseurs. Because just even have the freedom of building your own program that you can help with these youngins out, have value to it. We can't keep using old models as we get moving toward more technical bred youngins, because they're technical. My daughters are on iPads like this. This is their life. I mean, and this is the battle. You know what I mean? The forbidden fruit, the apple. This is the battle that I'm up against when it comes to youngins. And so we cannot underestimate the level of influence that have on our children. And again, you got to teach them who they are before somebody else will.
Yeah, you could go look up anything, learn it themselves. Don't gotta go get a book.
If you're not there, they might seek the knowledge from somewhere else.
Or they probably don't ask.
May not be what you probably would want them to learn or whatever the way, you know what I'm saying? But you do kind of like give them their first set of guidance.
Yeah, the guidelines, the template you should go by.
You got to give them everything. You know what I mean? The term living on forever doesn't mean the way they taught you it meant. You know what I mean? It's not about, like they teaching you, whether it's through religion, anything. It's about whatever you bring to earth is rememberable forever, and spoken out the words who come out of those who come out you who knew your story. That's how you live on forever. That's why when you say Dr. Martin Luther King, that's living on forever. If your story and your identity code ain't like that on your people, then you ain't got no forever. And that's the problem with a lot of what they doing to our youth. There's nothing wrong with being sacrificed. It's just you gotta understand what you're willing to be sacrificed for. You know what I mean? Because King was a sacrifice. If you ask those close to him, he knew when he was saying, I've been to the mountaintop. Like he knew these are what you call sacrifice. Same thing with Malcolm X. These is that sacrifice. He knew. These individuals know that they're gonna stand up peacefully. Both of them, for the most part, was peacefully. Yeah, X was more eye for eye, and I understand that philosophy too. But he was a peaceful man outside of that. The religion that he practiced, they're very high on peace before you're manipulated what people think you want it to be. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you from something that's been studied through all that. There's not even any categories of religion, because you gotta be more of a spiritual person before you can call yourself religious. Yeah. You know what I mean? And what you understand about the spirit is that we all share the same spirit. It's the way we breathe in, that spirit. You lose that, you lose life.
You walk to the room like, this spirit is off, and this energy off, and this motherfucker, I'm not about to be here too long.
Yeah.
So you got any other ventures that you're into, or
man, there's all type of ventures that what you saying, like ventures, like things.
I mean, you got your clothing, you got your community work, anything that you might haven't traveled for, but you just want to get into, or something you didn't mention already.
Well, not this. It's just this. This is what I like to say that my people that many that not familiar with who I am. Forget what people tell you are, and spend some time identifying who you really are. Because I think that's the battle with most of the people, particularly people of color, are struggling with. Like, once you start discovering who you are as a person, it might not have to be illustrated everything through line, or through a podcast, or through Instagram or YouTube, but it needs to always be illustrated like I felt I've done with you guys on camera and off camera, that I appreciate what you're doing. This ain't about this and that. If we bring that back as people, we can bring the communities, we can unify more. We can have unions strong, built on principles that we believe in, and we can leverage what we have against any, taxpayer dollars, because that's what it's all about. It's not about ever being into politics. It's about knowing and understanding how your tax dollars are being spent. And people don't understand that. You feel me? Because you have to pay your taxes, right? So therefore, if you're gonna pay them, your next responsibility is, where does the money go? So that's why most people who are in the for-profit industry justify having some political interest, because of their tax dollars. See, but if you don't even know that, right, then how can you start fighting this? You know what I mean? Like, who's educating our youth, our individuals like you, about that? Who's in front of you that you can talk to every day is giving you game like that as you build what you're building. But consequently, you can have one of the greatest podcasts alive moving forward. Just doing what you're doing. Because just because the elders didn't come and discover you doesn't mean that you won't be discovered. You understand? So our whole goal was like let's become the elders again. You know what I mean? That's why I asked y'all how old y'all. That matters to me because y'all younger than me. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that that just gives me seniorships. Basically saying I'm more of a senior than you. But it has nothing to do with the development. The youngest guys discovered the greatest platforms when they were practically in their 20s. Facebook. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you, this is how all this stuff is evolving and the way this stuff, is designed, that they're creating. They're doing a very great job falling in love with their ideas. You feel me? And proposing to the world that is better for the world. And that's something that's good. You know what I mean? That's not a bad thing. We just need to understand what our ideas is and learn how to propose them. And there's when you look at the distribution of how disadvantaged we are, they're staggering numbers. But don't ever let that get you to the point that you can't do anything that you want to do in life. You know what I mean? And that's the story of the pawn, because the pawn is the one that they told you that was the smallest piece on the board, but it's the greatest piece on the board.
I'm gonna get to my top 5 for you really quick. Top 5 places you would love to go and take the brand.
Locally or globally?
Man, don't put stuff in the box. Now, like I said, don't do it.
Huh?
Take stuff out the box. Don't put stuff in the box.
I ain't never in no box. That's why I'm asking you, because I don't want to be way out here. I'm being Pacific, right?
Travel.
I would like to get it to South Africa first because they fought for their emancipation, and it was connected to the word color. They spell it with the U in there. But I like to get it out there on a mass level. You know what I mean? Letting them know that, and the whole idea would be letting them know that there are people in this country that would like to do export and import towards you and the resources of your country. We need to start having a different conversation about what reparations is. People are talking about reparations, amount of money they're going to give you that's now inflated, that's now being challenged by the BRIC. You know what I mean? These are the money they think about dishing it out. Who's to say? There's a lot of studies out there that say that we're the only population that's supposed to get this reparation. It should be done in a way strategically, if it's representing people in the past, that it can tell and protect people in the future. So the system of it has to be structured where it's not even one generation that spends it all. That's first and foremost. But then, what is it going to be? What kind of currency is it going to be? Is it going to be Bitcoin?
It's going to be
we have to, but. Or is it going to be a form of saying, let's not look at everything as monetary equity. Let's look at things as social equity. Let's have prioritization of export and import with the people in Africa. You don't have to give us the money. We want to have priority if you're ancestor of foundational Black Americans. We want to have the ability to do export import. Because of that, if we got our papers and things in our line, we can set the rules on how that may look. But we want to be over any other nation. That would do two things. One, that would make us obviously real business people because we're controlling export, import. That's all business is. And two, we can establish better relationships with people over there in Africa. Would you rather the Black Americans in America do it, or would you rather China do it? It's a question that our systemic system has to look at and ask themselves. Who's the better person to have that relationship with Africa? Because that's what it's becoming, right? Yeah. So we can form and shape our reparations in ways like that. You feel me? That would help us, one, the export-import, where we don't have to always be dependent on the government. We want to pay our taxes, but we don't want to be dependent on the government. The government's supposed to be working for us. That's the way the founding fathers per se structured that, right? Yeah. So we want to keep to that. So we want to be entrepreneurs, and we want to do export-import, and we want to want to let our tax dollars go back to our communities to make better programs for our youngest that's coming. That is what they call a healthy, propelling free economy. We want to start looking at the structure like that. You understand? And we want to be very, 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 very firm about that. So,
I think South Africa could be one, right? South Africa would be number one.
South Africa will be one. I like to see how I can mix something up with over in Japan, because Japan is a very rich place when it comes to fashion, and people underestimate what they're doing, but they're
fly
controlling
shit.
shit,
Fly
right?
shit.
I would like to do something with mixed with them. I mean, I really would, because I think that
They rock shit. They rock with everything.
and then you know, it's still the Black Pawn, and that's the things when we even speak of the Black Pawn games, we want to be clear that, you know, going out and trade working the word color was also a subliminal way of letting you know that there's no particular color. Don't be fooled by that. You know, I rightfully call myself right. I mean, that's one. That's one of the messages. But it's also that they feed you to these divided lines, saying that you're Dominican, or saying that you're Puerto Rican, or saying that you're Cuban, but you've been one of the same people that's been dropped off in many cases at different boat stops. You feel me? That's one end. And then a group of organic people that has never been through slavery that's here, that's black. So let's get both sides confused when you talk about it, because I look at both, because I know both. I'm smart enough to done a lot of research to notice both. You feel me? Because there's already foundational black people on this country right here. We're closer than the Hispanic with Hispanic people than we think. Well, they're closer to us than what they're thinking is a better way to say it, because you know it's the same really thing when you start dealing up the sculptures and seeing the futures of them, the type of things they built, so similar to the things that was built from the motherland.
What's your number 3? You got
Oh,
Africa.
you going through all of them too, man. Okay, so Africa, you got Japan on there, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely want to do Japan. I like to go to Europe. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna do it in that order, but I will have to respect the prestiges they have built around brands, and it's just like someone 23 years of age reading a Hitler book. You know, like, as well as a Shaka Zulu book. Like, in no way saying that this and this, but these are interesting things that occur on Earth that it's better for you to know how these individuals think than to not know how they think, particularly if it's dealing with the area of racism. You understand? As a black colored person. When I look at Europe, I look at the prestiges and everything they built, and it's very exciting. You know how the air of cleanness has always been attached to their brand, and you see it when you go to their stores. You know what I mean, and then how they price their things, and they do a lot of quality. You know, because they have a lot of patents on different fabrics that produce different things once you start understanding. But I think it's very worthwhile going there and understanding how they have done that. You know what I mean? And not in a way, again, of like controversy or thing like that, because you don't really have to fight that way if you have your better ideas. That the real fight is about getting your people to understand the philosophy of the culture that they're paying for. You understand? Is it authentic or not? And I think we have better of advantage in that area. So, our fight is a little different because it's raw. You know what I mean? It's like, can you go out and can you patent the word color? You know what I mean? Or can you go out and can you come out with a jacket with food stamps on the collar? It's like some things they can't do, so their only alternative in many cases to do very more partnerships was also going to be healthy for the black community. So that's exciting to inspire as well. But that's our path for what we're doing with fashion. So I would definitely go to Europe, and then if you wanted a 4,
Being American.
Yeah.
I like to get it to the people in Belize.
Okay, yeah, you spoke on Belize.
Yeah, because I have a very beautiful relationship with them. Pre-COVID, I was doing missionaries in Belize for over 5 years. And I've seen some of my most gravest poverty in the jungle of some places in the Jamis, particularly one area that they call Spanish something, but I remember, and it was so unique, is that all the refugees from El Salvador come up to Belize in many cases before they go to America. And my wife, who's Hispanic, her mother's Mexican, and her father's El Salvadorian. Her grandmother may have came from the village that I had later was doing missionaries in to save the people. That was a story to me that allowed me to go from my first missionary just to, because I wanted to build a relationship from my general manager on the corporate side to doing it 5 years and in cases, got some property, looking for property down there. And it's already in Belize, but I like to bring it in a different fashion in a different nation. I don't want the fashion to be restricted to like this is our style for Americans. I think that it can be styles from Africans, and I think we can adopt each other's cultures. So I will find a way to try to bring some garments that can be useful for the trials and tribulations that they currently up against to produce it, and they can be beneficial. And it's already happened because the missionary that go down is my friend now, and we've given a lot of charity stuff that on this side because of our bouginess may not been able to produce that we have given it in that way because it would be bad just to destroy it.
And your last one.
My last one is just, man, thank you guys. My last one is a contribution. I want to it's a contribution to you guys and what you're doing and the persistence that you guys have and the ability to know diversity or something different or to interview and say this is going to be different, because sometimes it's the things that you offer to people that are different to catch more attention to everybody who's doing everything the same. So my contribution is to you guys and taking a look at the Black Pond journey, and I want to shout out to my brother Charlie, who's been one of the closest individuals, and Mike as well, with building this brand. Because even though I come, I'm fitting in this interview by myself, I'm still representing my men and the other owners of the Black Pond gang. Sure. We definitely we do this together. But thank you guys for the platform, allowing me to come on and air the game and do your best with your editing and stuff like that, and find some way so I can at least understand how I did on your show. Because like I said, I'm not coming at you like this superstar hardly ever really do this, but it's really time for us to step up, education each other when we talk about different. And when I say different generations, the way I look at everything is growing into stages of 7. So if you have at least 7 years different, that means I think because they say cycles, I'm thinking the days a week. You can go on by the name of 7. Mm-hmm. You got 7 when you're childhood, 7 in adolescence, 7 when you're adulthood, when you're 21. It's in the 7. So it's the 7s is, we look at phases. So if it's at least 7 years, I say, all right, well, we have that different when you're looking from a cycle standpoint. But we got to learn how to, understand the seeds that we're planting if we want to manage the harvest that we're getting. You feel me? So for me, if I ever want to criticize or say anything to a youngin, I gotta first make sure that I'm planting good seeds, because the cycle is supposed to always give down like that. I think we're losing track of that as a people, as a nation, and I think that we should spend a lot of time getting back to that. So that's with the Black Pond game and the Black Pond game or the community connoisseur trying to do it. You can reach us on all platforms at Black Pond Game, whether it's Instagram, BLACK PAWNGAME. That's our .com. That's our website, and then you can do that same Black Pond game across any social media. You can see what we're doing, talking about the journey, illustrating the journey of the Black Pond.
All right, man. Appreciate going to tell you said. Appreciate you coming out to us, man. It's been a dope conversation. It's been an educational conversation, like for real. Like design, I ain't never had so much interest. Well, I can't even say the word, man. I ain't never had so much knowledge. Yeah, intricacies about the word of the fashion world and the educational world. But it's everywhere here meaning.
And I'm just a beginner.
Yeah, this meaning a lot, man.
Like, I tell people, man, like people kind of get us confused. We don't just like do music. We have a lot of artists, but like I feel like one of our main reasons is to listen and to learn. We gotta do that. So like, if everybody's story is different. So like I said, it doesn't matter what you do. You love what you do. So we love to hear about it.
Yes, sir. And
we can learn from everybody.
We hope that you can look at what we're doing and look at it like not a selfish move, but a selfless or altruistic move where we're sacrificing basically who we are for the better good of humanity as a whole. No one left out, because the thing is, there's really no such thing as black or white, when they really come to people, to be straightforward.
I'm a human first.
It's the human race, and when you look at the word hue, it comes from the word hue, which is HUE. and that includes all people. It's different climates, in my belief, to change the way that people are, but we all interconnected. And at the end of the day, we need to all get along like that. Now, hands down, do we need to focus on our problems first? Yes. You know what I mean? But it'd be good if we all can just stop putting categories, in front of us.
More separation.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, when you have to come out with a company that's called the Black Pawn Gang, you have to ask yourself why. In this day and age, it's because it's still necessary. It's not because it's unnecessary. Think about it. We wear brands that don't understand the culture of what we ran. Am I right or wrong?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's just like people criticizing, or if they had criticism like with the Nation of Islam. You know what I mean? And I'm not none of these things, right? But I'm just saying, how can you? At the time, people really didn't think that they were worth anything. So what's the most extreme way of educating them? Like it was done. So at that time, can I judge it or criticize it or what I thought? It did something better for black people. I look now, do I agree with this and this? We always want to have our differences when the details. But they tell you the devil's in the details. So we gotta start focusing on that, looking at the overall goal.
Looking at the beginning and end game.
Yeah. But so that's just just like stay true to who you are, and when you explain it in a true way, because even though it's what we consider high end, it's really about what it stands for. It ain't for everybody.
Sir, I appreciate you, DonVeto Premier, coming through the Unplugged Thoughts podcast. Your boy Sly Got No Laugh.
Shampoo, aka Big.
Yeah, man, it's the Black Pawn Gang right here for y'all, right here. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.